Joining me now for more on the setup around SpaceX and what investors should be on the lookout for, Rohit Kulkarni is a senior analyst at Roth Capital Partners. Rohit, welcome. Do you have a sense for what this company's business model is?
There are four layers that we need to unlock here. One is what people know, Starlink satellites. They are selling monthly subscriptions for that. Then we also know they have the Falcon 9 launch business. So these two make money. I'm not too sure about profitability, but there are those revenue-generating businesses. And then there are two cash consumers, I would say. Obviously, the AI business, which is XAI and many things around it. Twitter, for example, and then you have the Starship business. So I think as we learn about the S1 filing, I think we'll need to unpack these four layers and what is generating money, how much, over what period, and what needs money over what period of time.
So let's go over this one more time. Starlink, we all know very well, obviously, although Amazon, again, we spoke with the Delta Airlines CEO about this just the other day. They have LEO coming online. It's going to compete with that. So SpaceX has Starlink. They have Falcon 9, which is its launch franchise. They have Starship, which you're calling a long-duration capital program. And then they have XAI and kind of wherever that's going to go. Which of these, so how do you get to 1.75 trillion from that?
There's going to be a lot of art and science behind the math of valuation that we'll probably need to do. Again, we've been talking to investors, and I think what public comps you look at, how you look at the comparables, and there are companies trading at 150 times sales. There are certain space companies trading at that levels. There are defense tech companies trading at 40 times sales. There are AI infra companies like the one that went public last week trading at trailing 150 times sales. So there are precedents out there and if you combine all three of them, space tech, AI tech, and futuristic aviation, I think you have a conglomeration of highly valued, highly aspirational businesses trading at significant premiums to what we typically see.
Right. Some of them we could probably just say are more aspirational. Others, I mean, Starlink, Falcon 9, those are real businesses. But again, just going back to this question about data centers in space, does that question have to be answered for you to get to the valuations that we're talking about for this IPO?
I doubt. I think what would probably be the biggest question that people would need to get at is how does Starlink scale? When does it go from consumer to enterprise to kind of anything that moves connectivity? So there is a pathway to that. While there is more competition coming from Amazon and many other companies, I think the bulk of institutional investor focus would be on Starlink, in my opinion. And then the true moonshot businesses like Starship and XAI, probably, if there's a way to box them into what amount of capex they would need, I think that would be helpful. So those would be the two biggest questions: Starlink pathway and kind of the capex for the big moonshots, which is XAI and Starship.
We spoke with Jim Cramer about this yesterday or the day before, and he kind of suggested with all of these big IPOs, SpaceX, OpenAI, and Anthropic, it could be leading lambs to the slaughter in terms of the retail public. Do you share concerns that these might be extremely overvalued, or going back to the multiples you referenced before, do those valuations make sense to you?
Hard to say about a lot of other companies, but SpaceX is once in a generation, or probably once in several generation companies. Particularly with the layers that we just talked about. Not many companies have these kinds of potential long-term possibilities that they have been working on over the last 15 years, and they're coming together in a way that nobody anticipated. So whether this company is worth $1 trillion or $2 trillion on 15th of June, we don't know. But there is going to be a lot of investor demand from both institutional and retail investors, and probably that leads them to a pathway of success, at least near term. Longer term, it remains to be seen.